a company is just a group of people at the end of the day that are trying to accomplish something. So find people, recruit people that care, that are brand advocates, that are champions, that are supporting your product, supporting you as a founder or an entrepreneur, and you kind of build this army of individuals, organizations, partners that want to see you win in the marketplace. And I think that's what it ultimately takes to build a multi-billion-dollar brand.
Ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
My name is Shadi Bakour. I'm co-founder and CEO at Path, the leading sustainable water in the United States and globally. Born and raised in San Francisco, Bay Area, and living in Austin, Texas.
So before Path became a nationally recognized name, it started with a simple idea and a relentless drive. So take us back. Like, how did this all begin?
Yeah. It's the simplest ideas that can have the biggest impact and really create that ripple effect, right? So it's like wheels on a suitcase. Like, why didn't anyone think of that, right? We should have figured it out a long time ago. But what we realized very early on is that bottled water as an industry has been the same for the past 40, 50 years since it really started. And we saw an opportunity to disrupt it. It was a light bulb moment hanging out at our local retail store, and we just decided to run with it.
But what, all right, so that light bulb moment, like what was the moment of realization that kind of led you guys to create Path Water? Like, how did that idea evolve from concept to company?
Yeah, I would say coming from immigrant parents that came to the US with nothing, that really drove me early on to want to create something and build something for them and for my family and, give them peace of mind. And that, I was willing to do whatever it took to make that happen. And I think that's one of the core things that has allowed us to get to where we are today, is just pure grit and, dying on the sword, essentially, like burn the boats. We started out, we were just hanging out in the back of a pickup truck in the parking lot of our local retail store, walked into the store, looked at the water aisle, and saw a massive problem. And what we realized is that most of the innovation in the space was focused on the liquid inside of the bottle, but not on the actual packaging itself. And so that was our light bulb moment. And as we looked more and more into the problem, we realized that this is a massive, massive opportunity. And so we built a business plan, created the product, raised a little tiny bit of money, started going door to door to every 7-Eleven in Northern California, where I'm born and raised. And in 30 days, we put the product in every single 7-Eleven in Northern California. 220 stores, just driving around in my Prius with the bumper hanging off the back. And over the years, we went from a Northern California brand to a West Coast brand to launching nationwide and really leading the charge in terms of sustainability. But we thought, how hard could it be? It's going to be on the market in a month. It'll be a $1 billion company next year, and we're off to the races, right? And it took a little bit longer than that, but we're having a lot of fun with it. And I think, waking up every day doing what you love is truly special. But definitely had its challenges along the way, and it's definitely not the last one either. We'll continue to have challenges to overcome, but enjoying every minute of it.
I think that's one of the interesting pieces, is that like once somebody realizes that they have a good idea, they're like, oh, this is $1 billion tomorrow. But then they actually start working that process, and you can get beat up a little bit.
Yeah.
So like, what prepared you or didn't prepare you for starting a business in such a competitive atmosphere?
Yeah, I think, again, it goes back to my parents instilled that work ethic in me, that, down to work 7 days a week and literally do whatever it takes to make it work. But outside of that, I would say the biggest thing that prepared me was trying 5 other business concepts before that and failing at all of them. Or just barely making it, right?
Wait, that's the piece nobody knows about.
Nobody knows about that.
They don't know that you failed 5 times before.
Yeah.
Were they also in the same industry?
Completely different industry. And some of them were just ideas that barely got off the ground. Some of them I spent a year and a half working on, since I was in high school, I was working on different entrepreneurial ventures and ideas. One was a website, one was app development, one was hardware, like all different types of stuff. But yeah, I mean, each one of those was the best learning experience at the same time.
Okay, then specifically with Path, what was the biggest obstacle that you faced in the first 12 months of launching? And then how did you push through whatever that obstacle was? Because you said within 30 days, you guys had figured out scale to your region.
Yeah.
So then
to 7-Eleven, right?
Yeah. I mean, because that's a massive brand in itself.
Yeah.
Right? Was that just a connection or like?
No, that was pure
just
hustle.
pure grit and hustle.
Yeah.
So then the following 11 months, what was the biggest obstacle that you guys faced?
Yeah. I mean, even before we started going after 7-Elevens, I would say the biggest obstacle for us was money, because we didn't have any money. And so we had to go find OPM, right? Other people's money. And that was a huge obstacle because we never raised money before. And we didn't know like what to do. We went to all of the people in our community and they all laughed at us. They're like, you're way too young. This is a horrible idea. This is never going to work. And just absolutely no.
Was that before or after the 7-Elevens?
Before.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then 30 days later, were they waving checks?
Yeah, I mean, we eventually convinced some guys to give us $50,000, and really rich people that were completely out of our community just randomly met them. And they basically said, we could either buy a toy or we could invest $50,000 into your company. If we buy a toy, we know we're actually going to enjoy it. With you guys, we're not so sure. And now they're very happy. But yeah, I mean, it took us, after we got the money, then we had to go find manufacturers, and we had to develop the brand, the website, like all of that stuff took time. And eventually we were able to get the product, and then we started hitting 7-Elevens. And yeah, every time we had a win, those people, like, I'm sure they're moving around in their chair all pissed off that they missed a massive opportunity. But along the way, you hear 10 times more no's than you hear yeses. And as long as you look at that no as one conversation closer to a yes, then every no is a blessing.
That's a developed mindset, because I guarantee you we all don't start looking at no's that kind of way. No's can be devastating, you know, especially if you start hearing them back to back.
Oh yeah.
Was there ever anyone that tried to spin the block? Did anybody try to come back to you and was like, hey, never mind, actually, I would like to write a check?
So many, yeah.
Did you let them?
A lot of times, yeah. Sometimes it was too late, but people are driven by their emotions, and sometimes those emotions change, and I'm not the type to kind of hold that against someone over the long run. So I would rather get a fast no than a drag me out for 3. If you can just tell me no, I actually look at that as like, I take it as respect. Like, you're straight up telling me that no, and I give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe that person didn't invest because they have, financial strains that I have no idea about. Maybe they got burned on another water company and they have trauma from it, you just don't know where that's coming from, so you just don't take it personally and just keep moving forward.
Speaking of emotions, was there ever a time or a moment that you thought Path might fail?
Absolutely. Not just one time, so many times, right? On the outside, it looks like it's all roses and rainbows, right? Everyone's just having a good time, and this brand is blowing up, and they must be just rolling in cash and all of this stuff. But it's not easy. Like, there are a lot of pressures from all different angles that are constantly pushing you in different directions and forcing you to make choices that you might have never thought that you would encounter. So it's a mental thing more than anything, right? Because at the end of the day, we've been able to pull ourselves out of it every single time. And I always believed, one thing I heard that really resonated is that a company doesn't truly fail until the people that are running it give up. because a company can go bankrupt, company can go out of business. If you're still waking up every day working on making that thing into reality, you're still here, you know?
It almost feels like, at least like the creative geniuses almost, or the ones that do the really big things that make a splash in markets in a major way, they almost have this like delusional belief
Yeah.
in what they're doing.
Yes.
Like, how do you develop that?
Yeah. I think that was one of the blessings of actually starting young, is that you're very naive. And that's like actually a strength in a big way, because I had people that were 40 years in the beverage industry that are telling me all the reasons why this won't work, because they've just been hardened and, you know, broken down by the industry. It's not an easy industry to be in, right? So I think one of the things that we always told ourselves was this phrase that we still say till today, which is, it's so easy. Like anything that we had to do is just, it's so easy. Like, how hard can it be? You get water, you put it in an aluminum bottle, you get it into the store, and you know, it's done, game over, right? And it might not be that easy to anyone else, but you're not only telling it to them, you're actually telling it to yourself. Like, it's so easy, right? And just lead with that all the time. And that was like, I think, something that served us well.
Well, I think you guys have, from the outside looking in, you've made it look easy, because I can't remember a time, at least recently, that I've seen a water just be such a brand, like a powerful brand presence, with the collabs, with the celebrities that are endorsing and willingly putting on their own platforms and et cetera. I'm thinking, what decisions did you guys think most helped you when you built this kind of cult-like brand loyalty that we're seeing from a water brand?
Yeah. I think the idea of collaboration served us really well. So our ability to work with others, whether it's celebrities or other organizations, brands, and really, I think a lot of organizations are kind of closed off. Like, they think that they're kind of special, and you know, it might work in some scenarios, but that wasn't our strategy. Our strategy was like more like embrace collaboration, because 1 + 1 = 11, you know, and that's how we think about it. So I think that went a long way for us. And then the other piece is just people. Like, a company is just a group of people at the end of the day that are trying to accomplish something. So find people, recruit people, and I'm not just talking about employees, like people that care, that are brand advocates, that are champions, that are supporting your product, supporting you as a founder or an entrepreneur, you know, and just bring that energy to them to hopefully recruit them along the journey. And you kind of build this army of individuals, organizations, you know, partners that want to see you win in the marketplace. And I think that's what it ultimately takes to build a multi-billion-dollar brand.
When I think of just bottled water, when you and I were kids, we're about the same age, it was never this like branded thing. It was just a water option because we wanted water. But you guys have taken a brand that is also a water option. But those other ones are sustainable. They've been here 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. They even have it on the packaging. How do you create sustainability, not just in your mission, but in the actual business model?
Yeah, I think sustainability has a lot of meanings. To your point, it's you know, creating more longevity for the planet, for humanity, because at this point we're eating so many microplastics that it's literally killing people at this point. But then when you talk about it from a business standpoint, it's creating a long-term business model, right? And there are some businesses that are just in it to only get to the exit, and you know, they're throwing cash, they're burning money left and right, and you know, just trying to set higher hoops and just pushing towards that. And that's one strategy that may or may not work for some organizations, but that's not really our strategy. We really spend a lot of time focusing on the fundamentals of the business and making sure that it's here for the long run. So it's, you know, a business is there to create value to all of its stakeholders, to the environment, to customers, to shareholders, to whatever it is. And a business is there to make profit. I truly believe that money can have a positive impact if it's tied to brands and organizations that are doing good. And so money is not a bad thing if it's put in the right places. And so I think that, you know, you got to make money as a business. You know, that's first and foremost. And figuring out the pieces of how to drive towards that and really drive overall revenue, profit, and a strong culture behind it that's just continuing to push that forward. I think those are the keys to success.
I love that. As I was listening to you, I was like, man, those things translate to any field, in all honesty, right? Any for-profit business that's a startup of any kind, that translates, right?
Yes.
I look at things as wins and lessons, not wins and losses. And that's, I don't know if it's a mental thing or a mental game I'm playing with myself, but that's the way that I look at things in order to just stay motivated and keep going. And I know a lot of founders that do the exact same thing. That said, we don't always get everything right all the time. So if you had to start over today, what's one major decision that you made that you would make differently, and why?
Yeah. I would say early on I was, you know, obviously hindsight is 20/20, but we brought on a early partner that really was not bringing a lot of value to the table. We thought he would. And so the way that we structured that person coming on board was not fair to the rest of the company and the work that's put in even up to this point. So I would say the one decision that I would probably do early on is if you're a group of co-founders, to do what's called vested equity. So vested equity is basically you earn your chunk over time instead of just saying, hey, you're my partner, let's do it 50-50, and, you know, doesn't matter what we put in terms of work ethic. Vested equity is, you know, a lot of young founders don't know this, and a lot of founders have fallout even with their best friends or with people that they work with, and that's just part of the journey, like for better or for worse. And so if you vest your equity, then you have, let's say, 4 or 5 years to earn that chunk in the business. And if you're out in year 2, it's not as bad of a blow, you know, versus if you just do straight up, you know, you're giving equity, then you might get in a position where if that person is not, you know, a nice person, then they're gonna take it and run, and there's not too much that you can do about it.
Is that one of those like sign a prenup at the honeymoon?
Exactly.
Like you know,
exactly.
I think that way that you just described, even if someone is out at year 2, so to say, 2 out of 5 years, they earned it for those 2 years, and they can decide to get off the train now.
Exactly.
Right. I think that kind of saves relationships.
Absolutely.
So outside of that, then, what's something else that you believed in at the very beginning of this journey that you no longer believe in now?
I think one of the things that I believed in very early on was that I was too young. Like, it actually got to me a lot that I was too young. So many people told me, you're young. I started the business when I was 22 years old. So I heard that a lot, and it got to me. And I had to get myself out of that mindset. And right when I made that turning point, I remember exactly, it was like 2.5, 3 years in, like we were raising money, and I couldn't find like I couldn't fill in a big investment round. Once I flipped that mentality, we literally raised $1 million in 2 months. And so that was a big turning point for me.
Goodness gracious, it's wild. So you weren't necessarily doing anything different. It was just the flip of the mental switch of
Yes.
like you deserving to be in the seat you were in.
Yeah. And what it created is a belief in myself, to be honest. Like, one thing that always resonated with me is nobody else is going to believe in you if you don't believe in yourself first. And I think there was some, I believed in myself, but I still had a lot of doubt and hesitation. And that thing, you're too young, that really held me back. And so it elevated my mindset. And now when I'm talking to others, they know that at the very least, I believe in myself, and that's a good reason for them to believe in me as well.
Absolutely. So then what advice would you give to an aspiring founder that's trying to disrupt a traditional industry? Because that's a tough thing to do.
Yeah. I would say spend a lot of time, number one, looking at the business model itself, talking to other people that are in the space, and just figuring out what the big challenges are so that they can kind of anticipate those as much as possible. You're gonna face challenges no matter what. There's no way to avoid them. But if you can anticipate them and kind of speak to them, then it might just give you an opportunity to avoid some major mistakes along the way, or lessons, as you like to call them.
When people look back 20 years from now at Path and you, what do you hope they'll say it stood for?
So on a personal level, I want people to say that I hope that people say that I stood for an organization that is really inspiring, that's allowing people to grow. I think work, we spend so much time working, and work should be a lot more than just a 9 to 5. It should be a place where each individual grows and really achieves higher potential. So I think if I can lead and inspire and motivate and help people along that journey, that would be super fulfilling to me. From a path standpoint, I think as the leaders in the sustainable movement, we're actually kind of the water company that doesn't want to sell you any more water because it's a reusable, refillable, and recyclable container. So it's very counterintuitive. And I think from that standpoint, we've had so many people tell us to go and do what everyone else is doing, even though that truly differentiates us from everyone else. But greed drives everything. You want to sell more units. You want to maximize your pull off the shelf and your sales velocity and all of that stuff. And we really have stood against that this entire time and positioned ourselves as a very contrarian business. And so everything that we do is against the grain. If Coca-Cola is doing X, Y, Z, then we're gonna go do the exact opposite of that, right? And that's very core to our DNA. And I think that contrarian mindset is what sets us apart from the rest of the pack. We're kind of the black sheep, but ultimately I think we're the ones that are gonna win by doing that.
Love it. So what I got from you today in my own notes is when you see an opportunity, take it, even if you fail 5 times in the process. Believe in yourself even when you're young with no experience. And most importantly, make them earn their equity.
Yes, that's it.
Shadi Bakour,
My man.
thank you for the conversation.
Thank you.